my name is Kiera Williams. I'm a mental health intern for Project G.A.M.E, which stands for Giving Adolescents Meaningful Experiences. Project G.A.M.E is important to me because I get to teach children about mental health and basically bring awareness to certain issues and topics that many people don't talk about.
Hello everyone, my name is Kyrie Hicks. I'm a success coach for Project G.A.M.E. What Project G.A.M.E means for me is basically opportunity. The acronym G.A.M.E, Giving Adolescents Meaningful Experiences, basically speaks for itself. I love this role because I get a chance to work with the youth and give them resources and tools that they're maybe not accustomed to in their everyday life.
My name is Lavaughn Wesley, and I'm the lead success coach of Project G.A.M.E. Project G.A.M.E is important to me because at one point in time, I was one of the individuals that are participating in our programs. And I know the importance of having mentorship and resources available to you. So I'm in the game.
My name is Eric Ewell. I am the Director of Continuing Education here at Penn State Greater Allegheny, where Project G.A.M.E is housed. Project G.A.M.E stands for Giving Adolescents Meaningful Experiences. I'm excited about the program because I was one of the original authors. So to see the program move from concept to reality and to see the lives that are being changed is life-changing for me. So we have an opportunity to be a part of something that's so special, that affects the lives of so many. That's why Project G.A.M.E is special to me.
I refuse to have a stale, fixed mindset and tendencies of needing to look smart.
Instead, I choose to have a growth mindset, knowing my intelligence has no bounds.
So I accept challenge and setback, for my persistence and effort will lift obstacles like weights.
Strengthening my mental abilities, I have no bounds.
The main objective for Project G.A.M.E is to disrupt the school-to-prison pipeline. We created this program because we want to have our kids start to develop a growth mindset. So we push into schools and assists across Allegheny County to teach many lessons on 3 major topics. Each one of these individual topics has a growth mindset foundation behind it. So we like to do a True Colors personality assessment, and then we also like to do a unit on mental health, and then of course another unit on growth mindset, in addition to professionalism and a few other units that we have. But those are our 3 foundational units, all centered around growth mindset. And with that being said, we are able to go ahead and give these individuals a true assessment of who they are, best ways to communicate with each other and other individuals, identify career paths, and also identify post-secondary and possibly other employment options as well if they don't choose to pursue a post-secondary education. In this way, this allows them to create a plan, something that we call an ISP, which Kyrie could go ahead and touch on.
To add on that, just Lavaughn mentioned, with our initial group for Project G.A.M.E, we push into the buildings. We try to start them with an ISP. ISP is a short term for an individual success plan. Each individual boy or girl in our program is established one. When we first push in, the first thing we do is establish a True Colors assessment. A True Colors assessment is basically just us understanding each individual and finding better ways to communicate with them. Moving on from there, I like to establish SMART goals. So yeah, basically what SMART goals is we're establishing actionables, and we have to accomplish them in a timely manner. What I mean by actionables is we like to put steps in place to ensure that we accomplish the goals we want to get done. In addition to the SMART goals, we're able to establish career paths based off the True Colors assessment that we established with these individuals.
Absolutely, Kyrie. So like he said, with those results from the True Colors personality assessment, we are able to identify what careers best match our kids' temperaments and their communication skills. So we're able to go ahead and create a success map, and that's the purpose of this individual success plan, is to give them something tangible that they can take with them and identify careers that they're interested in, the best ways to communicate with them and others, and also create goals that allow them to grow. And when Kyrie mentioned the actionables and in a timely manner, what we do is make sure we put a date on every goal. So that way we identify if we're moving as we should on target, or if we need to make some adjustments and pivot for these young men. In addition to that, like I said, we also do the mental health aspect, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. We were fortunate enough to have an intern, Kiera, that helps us out with developing these lessons. She's actually getting her master's in biobehavioral studies. And with that being said, we were able to go ahead and create lessons that are surrounded around anxiety, PTSD, and many other issues that our kids suffer with. And we're able to provide them with coping strategies and also resources to take home, such as phone numbers and hotlines to call if they need to get in contact with anyone, and also websites and also hardcore papers that they could take that has different coping strategies that can help them out if they're dealing with something such as anxiety, that can help them bring themselves down and calm themselves temporarily.
And don't forget, we always try to incorporate growth mindset in every lesson we do. I always leave the boy with a quote like this: your current situation is not your final destination.
Absolutely. And for more information on Project Game and Penn State Greater Allegheny, feel free to get in contact with us by visiting our website, which will show for you at the bottom of the screen, and as well as emailing myself or Kyrie, which information will be available to you as well. Thank you.
Peace, everyone. Welcome back to the fourth day of what Pennsylvania needs to know about juvenile justice. It's me, the fresh one with the flavor from One Hood, Farooq Al-Saïd. We have some ASL interpretation that we are extremely fortunate to be providing you for today's panel. It is my esteemed honor and pleasure to introduce a brother, Yusuf Salaam, who is a great friend of the organization. I remember, my brother Jasiri X introducing me to brother Yusuf, and we had a fantastic conversation. Just learned so much from him. Just had an absolute privilege meeting the brother. We enjoyed some lamb. You know what I mean? It was a dope. It was just an enriching experience. So I'm very humbled and glad that in collaboration with Project Game, we were able to bring him on. For those who don't know, Dr. Yusuf Salaam, in 1989, at just 15 years young, Dr. Yusuf Salaam was tried and convicted in the Central Park jogger cases, along with four other Black and Latinx young men. The Exonerated Five spent 7 to 13 years behind bars for crimes they did not commit until the sentences were overturned in 2002. Since then, they have received a multi-million-dollar settlement from the city of New York for its injustice and have been profiled in the award-winning films The Central Park Five, a documentary from Ken Burns, Sarah Burns, and David McMahon, and the most recent, the Emmy award-winning Netflix series, When They See Us, written and directed by Ava DuVernay. Over the past 2 decades, Yusuf has become a family man, a father, a poet, an activist, an inspirational speaker. He continues to utilize his platform to share his story with others and educate the public about the impact of mass incarceration and police brutality rooted in our justice system. He regularly advocates for criminal justice reform, prison reform, and the abolition of juvenile solitary confinement and capital punishment, specifically restoring humanity of those incarcerated and those trodden down by the spike wheels of justice. Yusuf is a recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award from President Barack Obama in 2016, and more recently has shared a story on the stance on current issues on CNN, MSNBC, Revolt, NPR, Atlanta, Fox, and more. And I would love to introduce my brother, inspiration, fantastic human being, Dr. Yusuf Salaam.
Wow, listen, it is an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all. I want to just say, may the peace, mercy, and blessings of the owner of all peace, mercy, and blessings be upon all of you. To be able to, stand to be counted is a great thing. Usually when you come home from prison, people say it's good to see you. And of course, most of us who are returned citizens say it's good to be seen. Yes,
that's a fact. That's a fact. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So, firstly, thank you for coming in, taking some time out, from I can only imagine how busy your schedule is right now. So thank you so much for carving this time out in your day for us. Right now, I know your life has been a whirlwind. You're promoting a new book, Better Not Bitter, which we were just talking backstage about, is an amazing title in respect to everything that you've been through. The fact that you are better, not bitter. Please explain that to me.
Well, what happens in life oftentimes is we are trying to figure out why life is the way it is. Mm-hmm. We wake up one day and we realize that we've been living in a nightmare. And all we wanted was the so-called American dream.
Right.
For me, being awakened to that nightmare happened at 15 years of age. I was run over by the spike wheels of justice, kidnapped by the criminal system of injustice, and put in prison for a crime I didn't commit. Mm-hmm. This prison really was a modern day cotton field. It was the reality of what the 13th Amendment said when they said that, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment of a crime, shall exist in America. And then it said in Section 2, Congress shall have the right to make this happen through appropriate legislation.
Mm-hmm.
It dawns on me that appropriate legislation that we read about in the 13th Amendment, Section 2, overwhelmingly affects Black and brown people. It almost feels like there's a conspiracy going on. And more important than that, I look at my life and I realize very, very quickly that my life was not an anomaly, right? What happened to me is what happens to many of us. And then when you look at the prison industrial complex itself, you realize that the overwhelming majority of the people there are people of color, Black and brown bodies who have been disappeared from society and life. Better Not Bitter is an answer. It's an answer because life wants you to be able to realize that you are being shaped, formed into a survivor. But if you don't realize that, you look at things that happen to you and you curse God out, as opposed to realizing that God is teaching you after you get hit with that 2x4 the first time, is teaching you that you need to learn how to develop peripheral vision. It's teaching you that you need to learn how to duck. Why? Because life is unfair. But those who have figured out the secret, they can really shine, and then they can show other people the way. But the other side to that is this attempt that life wants to give you to make you embittered, right? If you look at life and you say, man, why did I get these lemons? Right? Why did I get spoiled? Why did I get tricked? Right? I remember listening to Nelson Mandela, and he said, if he came out of prison after doing 27 years in prison, if he came out of prison with anger and bitterness with him, it would destroy him. He was known to have said, being angry and bitter is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. I mean, imagine that. It only happens to you. Like, what affects you and your response to it? The challenge is not what happens to you, but how you deal with what happens inside of you makes all of the difference. And most of the time, people they become so embittered by the situation that they do things that become very suicidal. They begin to eat terribly. They begin to treat their bodies terribly. They begin to think terribly. They begin to speak in a way that causes them to be always in a state of speaking death as opposed to speaking life. And so Better Not Bitter is my attempt to teach people through my story that the system can run over you, but you can still get back up.
Absolutely.
The best revenge is success. And so you have to be able to rise to those challenges and still make it look good. I mean, think about it. If somebody never knew my story and just saw me walking down the street, they would never know what I've been through. And so I always say, just like my good friend Jimmy Gardner, thank God I don't look like what I've been through. Oftentimes, we really don't know the full story. But the beautiful story is found in my book, Better Not Bitter. It's available for everybody to read. It's on every single place that you can find.
Plug that.
It is an audio. They have it on Audible. If people want to read it, right, they can listen to it. I'm the orator. I'm the narrator for the Audible. Of course, my other book that's out. As a matter of fact, it's out in not only English, Punch in the Air, but they just created. This is like the greatest thing in the world. They just created a version in Portuguese.
That's dope.
And they also
super dope.
They also created a version in French. So, it's a gift that keeps on giving. I'm sure that life, when this happened to me and all of those people that participated in it, who were very, they were spitting vitriol, right? They were spitting vitriol and they were hoping that I would believe what they were saying.
Absolutely. Now I have a question around that.
Yes, sir.
how long did it take you to become better, not better? Like like immediately when you come out, right? Everybody kind of knows that feeling. If you've ever been locked up, right? I shouldn't say everybody, but if you've ever been locked up, you know what it feels like to come home and you can finally breathe and you can finally exhale. And I remember Denzel and He Got Game. One of my favorite scenes of it was when he opens and closes the door when he wants to, right? And he's like, like, bruv, like that is a moment.
Yes.
That is a moment. And then reality sets in. And you think of everything that you've been deprived for how long that you were inside for. And that first night when you're kind of laying up in the bed and you're just looking up at the ceiling, wherever you are, everything is like decompressing and you're detoxifying. And when you get detoxed of these things, you taste bitterness, right? How long did that come? The revelation of being able to kind of distance yourself from the bitterness.
I got to tell you, you have to have started that process long before you come home from prison. If we can imagine this idea, this concept called the law of attraction, I always tell people that the law of attraction becomes real by you doing very, very simple things. If you close your eyes and you remember words from great orators like Les Brown, he said, your imagination is the precursor of what's to come. If you can close your eyes and imagine a better world, imagine a better time, and imagine a better situation that you can find yourself in, you begin to create in a way that becomes magical by allowing yourself to cause the law of attraction to be real. And what you do with that, I often tell people, is that you then have to marry that vision. If you can see it, you can achieve it. You have to marry the vision with the imagined feeling that you think it would feel like to attain it.
Right.
Now,
That's
when you
deep.
open your eyes, right, you get the opportunity to have laser focus. The problem is that life is still happening. You're still living in the present. You haven't yet gotten to that future of greatness, but you need to know that that future is there for you.
Absolutely.
And so as you begin to talk to God, and you got to talk to God, right? You got to be able to pray, stay prayed up every single day. You can't begin the process when you come home from prison. You have to start the process in prison. And so for me, it was 6 months in. Really, it was an officer 6 months into my prison bid coming up to me and asking me one simple question. And that question was the spark. He said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Yusuf Salaam, one of the guys that they accused of raping the Central Park jogger, but I didn't do it." And he said, "I know that." He said, "I've been watching you." He told me I wasn't supposed to be here. And then he said, "Why are you here? Who are you?" I went down the rabbit hole. I took that pill that caused me to go deep. It was the answer to prison, where prison is trying to teach you, if you don't do the time and you allow time to do you, you will become a victim of time.
Absolutely.
If you do the time, if you constructively participate in the growth and development process while you're doing this time, you will come out of this a better person. You might be bitter, you might be enraged because you realize that you weren't supposed to be there in the first place. But don't let time turn you into a criminal, especially if you've never been one. And so I had to start that process. I had to figure out how to grow and develop. And I had to figure that out by utilizing my imagination. I had to think my way out. And what happens when you're like, what happens, you think about martial arts, right? They always tell you that a small person can topple a big person.
Absolutely.
How is that possible, right? Well, if you know about things like jujitsu, Tai Chi, Arnis, I'm just mentioning a few, but I learned some of these things prior to being in prison. And then while I was in prison, I was learning some of this stuff, but some of the prison officers were teaching me some of these amazing martial arts.
Right.
But what I really appreciated about it was that I found out that wherever your mind goes, your body follows.
That's real.
Life, in its conspiracy to destroy Black and brown bodies, and people who have been pushed to the margins of life, life has started a war that you don't even realize that you've been in until later on.
And let me ask you this now. And this is something we talked about backstage, and that was so poignant. You were 15 when you went in, and you're having these profound thoughts at 15. So you said 6 months in, you already started to decompress and kind of, look at the reality of it and say, okay, this is what I am. This is where I am. This is what I will not be. This is who I will not become, right? The justice, and you were just talking about it. So, the justice system, the penal system, has a way of torturing young Black and brown children. And you claimed agency over your exoneration in a way that a lot of people aren't fortunate enough to. And we look at a Khalif Browder who was victimized, who faced trauma that we can only, we know what happened on the inside. Like, we know how it looked, but this young brother was subjugated to so much and ultimately, succumbed to the mental health battle of incarceration. You reclaimed your agency and took that and made it a success story. And the inspiration that lies within that is what we're trying to talk to these youth about, right? That's what we brought this panel together. What was your experience like coming in at 15 around grown men? Like, we know what the ends are like. We grew up in the ends. Like, we 15 dapping up 25-year-olds all the time if alhamdulillah, if they make it that long, right? If they make it that long. But we know what it's like being around the oldest. But what's it like on the inside? That's what.
Yeah, the thing about it, when you think about being in prison, I didn't get the opportunity to really get involved in the adult prison life until I became 21. Right? When they convicted me, I was 16 and they sent us to Rikers Island. But they sent us there. They claimed it was a mistake. I don't think that there are any mistakes. I think they did that on purpose because they wanted for what was going on in the prison, especially when it relates to Corey Wise. Corey Wise had been on Rikers Island since this whole thing happened. He was 16 years old. He was only a few months older than me. And to be in that space where grown men are seeing you as fresh meat, you're being thrown in and told to defend yourself. They want you to fight. They don't want you to just be giving it up. They want you to fight, right? They want to turn you into a person who is going to give them. It's this gladiator. It's the mentality of being in a gladiator situation. You want to fight, right? The problem is that those of us who were unjustly put there, we weren't supposed to be there.
Right.
Part of taking back your agency, even in those lowest moments of life, is you have to remember that when your mother and father got together, I don't care how you were conceived, right? You could have been a victim of rape, but you have to understand this simple, profound reality. So when your parents got together, you were one of over 400 million options. And the creator said to you, be.
And Allah make us have the most perfect of molds.
And now here you are. Now, what I want you to understand, right? So, and the viewing audience to understand about that process is that if you were created and you were chosen to be here, that means that you were born on purpose. And if you were born on purpose, then you have to know that you have a purpose. Life has been telling every single one of us that you ain't worth nothing. And if you believe it, you begin to move throughout your life as if you are a mistake. When the antithesis of that is the most truest thing, that you're worth everything. And once you realize that truth, psychosocially, you have to know that you matter. You matter to the people around you. And once you realize that you matter, you then can turn the light up that God gave you, that special light, that special nur inside of you. you begin to turn it up and you begin to eschew the darkness around you, right? And so I think part of that agency has to happen in that dynamic reality of understanding that you were born on purpose and you were born with a purpose. If you never believe that you were born on purpose, you will never believe that you were born with a purpose. But once you realize that you were born and the odds were already against you, you were one of over 400 million options and you came out. That's a profound reality.
MashaAllah. So for those of you who are just joining us, man, I'm here with Dr. Yusuf Salaam of the Exonerated Five. And he's he's building today. He's putting on a clinic of just education and knowledge and sharing his experience. I would like to bring on two brothers from Project Game, Penn State Greater Allegheny, who are partnering with us to bring us the symposium of what Pennsylvania needs to know about juvenile justice. That if anybody is still tuning in that's been here for all 4 days, thank you, because you literally could be anywhere in your work day and your work week, but you're here with us, with Dr. Yusuf Salaam. So I would like to bring in Pastor Eric Ewell and brother Lavaughn Wesley. You know, both of them are good friends of mine, colleagues, amazing community members, and invite them in for this dialogue. Thank you, brothers, for joining us. Thank you for assisting us with putting this well-needed symposium together. I understand that each one of you have a question for Dr. Yusuf Salaam, so we can continue this dialogue going. Pastor, brother Eric, why don't you go first?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, first of all, thank you, Farooq and One Hood for facilitating this for us, and also Dr. Salaam, thank you for joining us. So my question to you is, I was listening to you speak, and we've encountered quite a few young men around the same age that you were when you went in at this point. And it led me to hear you say you're not an anomaly. And that's the part that really troubles me, right? Because your story is extremely troubling and, is disturbing to the spirit of anybody who is human. So talk to me about that piece when you say you're not an anomaly, because as many as there were you all who were able to overcome the challenge that you went through, I'm sure you encountered multiple people in that system who were not able to overcome that, and unfortunately probably succumb, to the pressures of the things that you went through. So if you can just speak on that for a few minutes for me, that would be great.
I say that I'm not an anomaly because I want not necessarily those of us who have had the unfortunate reality of being run over by the spike wheels of justice happen to us, but many of our stories have not been told. And so when people look at a Yusuf Salaam, they say to themselves, wow, look at this brother. He's unique. He's made it. He is like Barack Obama. The truth of the matter is that Dr. John Henry Clark said it best, right? He said, if you begin a people's history with slavery, anything else looks like progress. The truth of the matter is that when I went to Africa and I was in Senegal with my delegation, and they went on to Gambia, and they were talking to the Gambians, and they asked the Gambians about a young man that we knew about because of Alex Haley called Kunta Kinte. They said, you ever heard about Alex Haley and Kunta Kinte? They said, yeah, we know Alex Haley very well. Kunta Kinte was one of our princes. They said when they kidnapped him, and I want you to understand the language that they're using, right? This is the reason why I talk about being pushed into the criminal system of injustice is not you going to prison. No, you are being kidnapped into an unjust situation in reality. He said when they kidnapped him, the Gambians sent over 200 of their best warriors. We think about African warriors from two perspectives, perhaps, maybe more, but two perspectives I know for sure. One is the mighty Maasai, and one is the Zulu. And when we think about them, what do we say to ourselves? How could you take a Maasai warrior and turn him into or her into a slave? How could you take a Zulu warrior and turn him or her into a slave? The totality of the history of who you are and everything that you are has to be wiped out. And put in place of it is an unfortunate reality that many of the enslaved people really did not believe. They had to bury deep inside of their own deoxyribonucleic acid, that thing we call DNA, the baton, as they began to pass the baton back to the generations that were coming forward and back to the next generations that were coming forward. They had to pass the baton of greatness of who we are, so that one day our ancestors' wildest dreams would show up on the scene. That's what we are experiencing today. We're experiencing the most fearless generation that has ever been born on these shores. But we need to give them guidance. And in the guidance that we need to give them, because many people show up on social media and they'll say things like, I know my rights. Those same rights that they're talking about are part of what? The Constitution of the United States. But if we just do a deep dive as we revisit it for one moment, and we start from the beginning, the words that were being ratified as this country was coming into fruition, right? The modern version of this country, we read the words, we the people. And if we pause for one moment, what do we know? We know that Black and brown people were not considered people. We were considered 3/5 of human beings. So therefore, we weren't a part of that process. And ever since then, we've been trying to play catch up. But the real reality and understanding has to come from the truth of the matter that we did not start as slaves. We were the architects of everything that the world is experiencing now. And so in the reality of me not being an anomaly, I'm trying to get young people to understand that if you look in the mirror, and I want them to do this, if you look in the mirror at your own self, look in your own eyes, and you give yourself permission to be great, you will then be great again. If you look in the mirror at your own eyes and at your own self and you tell yourself, I'm intelligent, just like that, you will begin to move and act intelligently. It's important. It's important for us to do that, right? Because,
Absolutely.
Because as we look out of the window of life, others are looking in the mirror. The whole of life reflects them. Everything is being advertised through their skin. You go on social media, even prayer programs. You look at the prayer program, you say, man, this is a great statement. But that person don't look nothing like me. Where am I in the equation? We have to give ourselves back the permission to be great because we were born on purpose and with a purpose. And that's the ultimate reality of understanding that we're not an anomaly. The other flip side to that is true as well, right? But I'm trying to take the higher road because the lower road is realizing that, yes, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Yusuf Salams that have been pushed into the prison industrial complex, turned into modern day slaves, pushed into the modern day cotton fields. But we got to look at the flip side to that. If we accept that, just like many of us have accepted the seed that has been placed in the Black and brown community, a seed that says you're going to be dead or in jail before you reach the age of 21, we begin to move throughout our lives as if we are mistakes.
Good stuff. Appreciate that.
Opposite of
You
that.
touched on something, and I wanted to highlight it briefly for those who don't know about the gravity of this story and the vitriol and the invective that America hurls at Black and brown children. There was a front page ad taken out in the paper by a businessman at the time who later went on to somehow trick his way into the White House. John, if you could bring that up just momentarily, with this front page ad said, right, about these Black children, Black and brown children from New York City. It was, bring back the death penalty, bring back our police. Signed at the bottom, Donald J. Trump. This was about 5 Black children from New York City. A businessman had nothing to do with any of this. But because of the bloodthirsty aspect of white supremacy, capitalism, and politics playing with Black bodies, that is what we've seen as a call to justice against innocence in America. And then he later went on to stand by his statements from the Oval Office.
Yeah.
This is America.
This is no different than Barack Obama taking liberty to say, I will lift a trade embargo for Assad Shakur. These statements that are given against Black people let you know that your innocence means nothing to us. Because as you said, you felt like going into a gladiatorial arena. You're meat to lions. And the justice system is the lion. Now, my brother Lavaughn Wesley, also from Project Game, also had another question for you, brother Yusuf. Go on, bro.
Yes, thanks a lot for your insight, Dr. Salam. I mean, you have so many quotes I've written down here that I'm probably going to use to inspire some of our young boys and ladies that we work with. But you mentioned earlier you said something along the lines of, don't let the time or being in jail turn you into a criminal. Especially, and that hit home with me because as we talk about the school to prison pipeline, and that's really the focus of this summit that we're having here, is to discuss and try to dismantle and find ways to dismantle it. When we know that they're imprisoning our young men and women at a high rate, the recidivism rate is high, and a lot of these individuals are committing petty crimes, if any crime at all. What were you able to do to continue what we call as a growth mindset? You're exuding a growth mindset by being in a position of where you know you're innocent, you're in an adult penitentiary, and there's no one there to support you. How do you stay in the mind frame of not allowing that situation to turn you into a criminal? Because in a lot of situations with that, in instances, a lot of people feel like I have to adapt to this culture and become a criminal to survive this particular situation that I'm in. And then once they leave, they come out as a criminal, as you explained. So what did you do specifically? What things did you do specifically to keep you in a positive mind frame to where you said, I'm not going to allow myself, who I am at the core, to turn into what they want me to be?
Well, I love that. I love that question, first of all, because writing my memoir caused me to go back and dig very deep. Right. Sometimes you're moving through life and, you figured a few things out and you're able to juggle what's going on and what's happening. But then you have to take the time at some point to realize that how do you pay it forward? By giving back. You have to go through the Sankofa moment of going back to get something. And so I had to go back in my own history to realize, how did I go through that? Or rather, how did I grow through that? In my book of poetry, I remember writing this. I said, most of the poetry in this book was written while I was incarcerated. Between 1989 and 1997. There are pieces that were written after that, but the bulk of the material took shape while I was in prison. I've always called this body of work Words of a Man because the social and justice systems weren't treating me like a man. From the unbelievable accusations from the start, to the wild convictions of the media, to Donald Trump's full-page ad calling for the state to kill us, to final judgment and imprisonment. The system wasn't treating me as if I was a man. So because I knew I was a man, a human being, and a son of God, I had to remind myself, and these words were a big part of that. Here I was at the beginning of this whole bid, and I had to grow up very, very fast. But I wanted to share this work specifically because I wanted people to know that when you find yourself in so-called dark places, there's always a light somewhere in the darkness. And even if that light is inside you, you can illuminate your own darkness and shine your light on the world. I'm saying that we've been tricked into believing that being a fool is cool. We've been tricked into believing that. We know that after slavery was abolished, they had things called the vagrancy laws, which allowed slavery really to continue. So if you and your buddies were hanging out on the corner of 125th Street, pontificating the Pythagorean theorem, now, as we look at the young people standing out on the corner of 125th Street, we say, man, they must be up to no good. even in the Harvard, what's the thing? It's the implicit bias
Yes.
stuff. Even in that study, I remember one of the doctors saying, "Man, this study, something must be wrong with this," because he was a black man and he had to reconcile with the fact that he also, just like all of us, have been implanted with biases, even amongst our own people. And so part of the trick is, one, believing in yourself, so much so that you have to know that there's a purpose behind you being here. Even Dr. King talked about it in his great speech, right? In his speech, and I forget the name of the speech, but he was saying that when you find your purpose in life, do it as if God himself called you to do it at this very moment. And instead of giving us an idea of what purpose could be, maybe being the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a multimillionaire, a billionaire, in fact, he said, if your purpose in life is to be a street sweeper, sweep the streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep the streets like Beethoven composed music, like Leoton Price sang before the opera, he said. There's value in every single one of us. And the concerted effort that they put forth in order for us to continue to not just be in the margins of life, but as we look at the great works of a Dr. Carter G. Woodson, we realize that the Negro is such that he's been trained that even if there's no longer a back door, they have been trained to create a back door so that they can go through the back door as opposed to the front. We have to reorient ourselves. And in the process, sometimes it just takes enough moments of us being silent. And it takes the what's the word I'm thinking about? Those of us who have a bit of wisdom, we cannot stay silent. So us as elders, just like I was a young boy on 125th Street, walking down 125th Street next to the Apollo. I had my pants sagging. I'm 12 years old and I'm about this slim. One of the elders saw me and he said to me, "Did you see yourself before you left your house this morning?" Now, I'm like, I look cool. But I've been trained and told and taught not to speak back or down to my elders. And so I'm thinking, man, I look cool. What are you talking about? And but because he said it, when he left me, I looked at myself. And what do we do whenever we leave the house? This is exactly what we do. We check ourselves out and we out the door. But because he said something, I didn't just look at myself in the front of me. I looked behind me. I wanted to see what the heck he was talking about.
Yeah.
Man, I look crazy. I never wore my clothes like that again. And I'm saying that we have to be able to spark the knowledge and the intellect in every single one of us that is there, that is dormant, that is waiting. We're waiting for that guidance. We're waiting for the light because we want to walk in the light. And like I said in my book of poetry, sometimes that light is inside you and you have to turn up your light to eschew the darkness around you. And what happens when you turn up your light? Those people who see it, they want to walk in your light. And then they realize that they too have light and they could turn up their light. We could change, as my good professor, Dr. Marimba Ani said, and I quote, better not bitter. My professor said to me and others in the classroom, she said, if we decided tomorrow that their system ceases to exist, their system will cease to exist. How does this happen? It happens because right now we're like this. They divide and conquer. But as soon as we go like this, we become unified. The challenge is us becoming unified. That's the challenge.
I mean, that's incredible. There was, You talk on so much. So Vaughn, I'm glad you taking notes because like I'm gonna have to read that sometime. But
Had to. Too many great points.
Facts. We look at these historically white institutions, academia. We look at these historically white practices through so-called justice and so-called, judiciary recompense, how it exists in the States. Brother Eric, I want to ask you, how did Penn State allow or even come to you about forming a project like this where we can have, a Dr. Yusuf Salaam speaking with Project Game?
So conceptually, personally, I'm the director of continuing education at Penn State Greater Allegheny. And when I was hired, I didn't meet the traditional mold of a CE director. But our chancellor really wanted to reach out and to begin to affect change in the community, and more specifically for Black and brown people was her intent. So she and I had multiple conversations on what that looks like. So traditionally, my role raises money for the university, and I said this before, and I'll say it publicly. I'm not, interested in raising millions of dollars for $1 billion organization. I want to change lives. So with that being said, she tasked me with figuring out how do we reach the community, and I know we can't reach the community that we want to reach without dealing with the youth. Initially, and then also having a 2-generation model dealing with adults as well. So if you're going to reach the child, change the child's life, you also have to work in the life of the parent as well. So what we decided to do was sit down and we brainstormed, what do we need? And back to Dr. Salam, some of his conversation with us is just that. We decided our children needed experiences. So we sat down in the room, and it was me and every other Black and brown person at the university. We are the most diverse campus in respect to our faculty and staff and students in terms of Penn State, the 21 system campus system that we have. So we sat down in the room, and that's what we came up with. The overarching idea was to let's give adolescents meaningful experiences. And who are the most vulnerable? Those young men who are in what we call the community intensive support program, and they get extensive supervision through their probation. So we started working with that group. So our idea was to figure out how do we help this group. And these are some of the high flyers. These are some of the ones that have violent crimes, some of the higher flying crimes. So that's how we conceived it. That was the conception. Now, I'm not a big believer in giving somebody something to say, go do what I told you to do. So I personally knew Lavaughn before we hired him. And I said, listen, we need to hire somebody and let them build the program, because whoever we hire will be more invested if they're able to develop the program, from soup to nuts. So we conceived it. We conceptually came to the idea of giving adolescents meaningful experiences. And the overarching goal was to divert this school to prison pipeline. So when we sat down with the person that we hired, that's what we gave him. Right. And I'll stop there because I'm sure you probably have a question for Lavaughn. But conceptually, it started with the chancellor wanting to affect change in the community. She did that by hiring somebody who was non-traditional, who already had roots in the community. I've worked in almost every neighborhood in Pittsburgh that people would call challenging. So, she knew I was able to get my hands on in the right places and right people. And here we are. With that, we wrote a grant to the Heinz Foundation. And we're now in moving into year 3 of this grant, and it's been nothing short of amazing. And Dr. Salam has really, inspired me to continue to fight on, because I'm sure, if anybody understands, he understands. Whenever you're fighting against a system that has so many pitfalls and traps as you're fighting through it, it almost feels invincible. But to hear him and to be able to see him and know that he overcame the system, it gives me the strength to continue on.
Absolutely. So. Here's what's dope about this. I'm gonna keep it all the way tall, brother Yusuf, and everybody watching and listening. When Eric phoned me about a month ago with the idea for this symposium, the first thing he said was, "Listen, I got this idea." He gave me the spiel, and he was like, "Can you get me in touch with Dr. Yusuf Salaam? We would like to have him." I was like, "Okay, well," I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Give me your Christmas list. And let me see what I can do, right? Let me see." I was like, so Jasiri and I brainstormed when we came out, was like, okay, let's get this moving. Like my brother, Dr. Yusuf Salaam, both of us came from a very specific environment, just like a lot of other Black and brown children do in this so-called United States of America. And we've been wronged by the judicial system. But we've been able to reclaim our agency and traverse and navigate these waters of academia, right? And it's not many people that can come from behind bars and come from convictions and exonerations and acquittals and move into areas of prestige and academia that are traditionally, you know, occupied by white spaces. And, you know, you have to fit a mold. Even if you are Black, you have to fit a mold coming in there, right? They don't want too many people sounding and looking like us running them halls of, you know, Harvard. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like the property value go down real fast.
True. Come on, bro. That's the truth.
Come on, like, you get me? Like, your degree don't mean as much when you got a whole bunch of people like me getting them, right? And I don't have a degree. So it's like, so that's a different discussion. But Vaughn, how did you feel learning about the design of this protocol and this practice and coming here today and talking about this and comparing the stories and everything?
It's crazy because, you know, me and you know each other from working in Propel charter schools, bro. You know, that's where we met. And the one thing I do appreciate about my experience at working at Propel Charter is that they gave you a ton of autonomy. So now as a history and social studies teacher, I'm teaching them about Black Wall Street and things of that nature. You know, we're talking about social justice issues and things going on in our community. But before I got here, you know, I had got promoted to an induction and residential specialist on training and inducting new teachers and educators. So the higher up you get in the system, you start to see some of the hypocrisy and things of that nature. And I really started to feel constraint by some of the rules and some of the white fragility, you know, when it comes to let's have courageous conversations. Let's not just talk about the issues. What actionables are we putting in place to be able to combat these things? And no one wanted to act, right? So Eric kind of like, I believe God blesses you through people. So me and Eric's wife went to school together, got our masters in teaching together and things of that nature. And I know she had brought me up to him. And it was just like, and me and Eric knew each other as well. So when he reached out to me, I was in a space to where I was tired of the system, the school system, you know, because I know it was just all talk and no action. Well, that's how I felt at the time. And when he told me about this opportunity, I'm like, yo, this is like, really? They're going to let us? You know who I am, you know, and things of that nature. And Eric knows me, you know me, I'm a direct guy, you know, and I don't shy away from much. And I'm aggressive because, as you said, I've been wronged by the system myself. I was on house arrest for 3 years as a college football student, you know, and my coaches didn't believe in me. Everybody turned their back on me. You know, I didn't have any support. And once I was on house arrest up there, after I got off, the cops harassed us. They would pull me over, me and my guys, put the dogs in our car, say, we know you got drugs in here. The campus is watching us handcuffed, crying sometimes, calling us, trying to call us because they're like, are you guys all right, man? But they keep having. So I was already bitter, you know, and I already knew how our kids were being treated. So when Eric gave me this opportunity, and then I didn't know and Eric might not know, I didn't know he was going to give me the opportunity to start from scratch, you know, so God set me up to give me that teaching experience to be able to bring that over now to where Eric's like, yo, we need a whole curriculum based on, you know, breaking the school to prison pipeline. We're dealing with the CISP here in Allegheny County. We needed to be direct. We needed to be intentional. We need all of these things. So I already had the skill set of an educator to develop the curriculum, you know, and then structure it. And then also do some slick things that makes it even more inviting when we're talking about including things like the PDSA standards for Pennsylvania when we're talking about interpersonal communication skills. So when we're going into schools, we're not saying we're a mentoring program just to yip and yap and talk. There's actual structure and actionables to all of the things that we go over and talk about. And so when Eric gave me this opportunity, it was like euphoric, you know, and I was excited about it. And like Eric said, him giving me that opportunity even made me more invested because this is my baby now. So anything I'm putting out is a reflection on who I am and who I believe our young men to be because I was these young men. So when I'm creating this content, I have to take all my personal experiences and pour it into this content. And that's the difference between us and a lot of other programs and schools specifically, is that this content here is courageous. We're talking about, you know, sexism. We're going over mental health and talking about phobias and anxieties that we have in our community and breaking bad habits in our community and change models and things of that nature. You know, we're giving them personality assessments because our boys don't know themselves, you know, so we're giving them an opportunity. And these are the things I had to find out at the age of 30. I didn't know myself. You know, at the age of 30, you know, I didn't have these. We're talking about financial literacy. What's the difference between luxury and necessity? Because in our communities, we think in this luxury is a necessity and we don't need that. you know, and really identifying what's the difference between the two, you know. So in the traditional school system, they're not providing the resources and the learning that our kids need to stay out of the system and not to recidivate, and to, as Dr. Yusuf Salaam said, give themselves the grant, what did he say? Give yourself the permission to be great. And that's what we're doing. When we push in, we're going in just like them. I got tattoos. I done been through what they've been through. My family suffered from drug addiction, alcoholism, sex abuse, everything. I've seen it, been through it all. So when I come in and we talk to the kids, myself and my staff, they know we mean it, we've been through it, and they ready to be receptive to what we're getting. And we're not looking at them funny. So I'm gonna use your experience, Dr. Yusuf Salaam, of the older individual telling you, have you looked at yourself when you come out the house today and it made you think? Well, sometimes we gotta take a different approach. When I look like you, you're more receptive to my information I'm about to give you now. You feel me? And what I try to tell the kids and we teach the kids is, we don't have to lose your identity in yourself to try to fit into this bigger culture, because we got our own subculture and it's okay, but you got to learn how to navigate the landscape. And with Eric giving me the opportunity to do this, and within the last year and a half, going on 2 years, we've been able to do some great things, and we're continuing to do so, including this summit here. Man, it was amazing, bro. And you know, Farooq, you know how we got down in the schools. You know,
Absolutely.
Kids loved us because why? We were transparent, we're real, but
Authentic.
we also coupled that with education behind it. So now we're transparent and real, but we're giving you actionables. We're giving you strategy. We're giving you organization, and we're giving you a certain skill set that's going to allow you to give yourself permission to be great. So it was an amazing opportunity. It gives us the autonomy we need to push into schools and say, hey, we got this from here. You know, let us get these boys and girls together and give them the education that they really need, because it's not all about academics. Academics mean nothing if you don't have a sense of self, man. You're lost.
That's facts.
So at the end of the day, we push in and give what I call real culturally relevant content and pedagogy.
That's dope. That's super dope. Thank you for that. For everybody that has tuned in, you know, thank you so much, Dr. Yusuf Salaam. Thank you, bro. You know, we are actually going to take this to a different platform. We have another engagement. Before I go, I want to make sure everybody, if you don't have Better Not Bitter or Punch in the Air or Words from a Man, Dr. Yusuf Salaam has books available everywhere. Could you pull your books up one more time, man? I know we want to get these good plugs in right here. Boom, right there. There we go. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Look at that.
Yes, indeed.
Last night on This Week in White Supremacy. Oh, he got the trifecta. He got the Trinity. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Last week on This Week in White Supremacy, that was our white pages was Better Not Bitter. So we just picked this up organizationally. Yo, can I get a signed copy, man? Inshallah.
Absolutely.
Can we get a signed copy? Because I'm planning on using one of those books as some literature for our boys.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, man. And if I could get a shameless plug as well, if you don't mind, Farooq. As far as our game gear, you see my hat and my shirt here. What we plan on doing is the people who have purchased these, we got a GED program as well. So we help our boys get their GED and things of that nature, and then all the money goes towards that. But what we do is these hats is a form of unity. How you were talking about, Dr. Yusuf, about that 5 finger and us being separated. Well, this crown represents unity here. So anyone that has this hat on or wearing game apparel, what that's saying is you support our kids in the growth mindset and the development of our youth out here. And it's just an identifier. So if you want to support, holler at us. We got the hats, we got the t-shirts, we got the shirts, because what that does is show support. And we want you to be able to see a hat and say, hey, he's part of Project G.A.M.E. That means that they're protective of our youth. They're about unity and they're about action. And I'm about that too, you know? So I just wanted to give that plug out there as well. Thank you, bro.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to, listen, everybody, thank you for tuning in for the past 4 days. We are going to leave you lot with this. You can always go back and stream it retroactively. That's what we put it out there for. On behalf of One Hood Media, my name is Farooq Al-Saïd. I'm the fresh one with the flavor, also known as Saïd with the shades, full-time supervillain, part-time hater. And we out here, man. So everybody, bless.
Blessings.
Thank you.